The next Wagon Wheel KPI or area is farm performance. Now, we have got two very clear KPIs that we're working towards. The first one is our pasture and crop harvested, and the second one is milk solids to the 31st of December. The reason that these two are really, really important is we know that the more pasture and crop harvested on farm, there's the greater relationship we have to profit. And milk solids to the 31st of December, being where we are on dry soils, we need to get the production before things dry out too much. So we can see the trends over time. This was the drought year last year, 12.2. I think we grew about an extra 3 tonne less last year. We're looking at this stage, we're about 10.1 tonne already harvested, so we're looking like we're going to be quite good again this year. Our target is 15 tonne. So we've still got a way to go. Now, this is really what's driving our pasture program. So we need to make sure that we are growing the right type of crop and the right type of pasture, and then being able to harvest it and manage it effectively. This second line here, we've been achieving around that 780, got up to about 800 in the 18-19 year, and sitting just under 800. We hit 850 kilos a hectare on about the 12th of January. So this one is really important for us because it drives the calving date, and it also drives the calving rate, and it ensures that we keep enough pressure on those two KPIs as well. So I'm going to invite Tom to come up and just talk a little bit about how the season has panned out so far.
Thank you, Joe. Morning all. December production was back on track after a bit of a slow start due to the later calving date, waiting for the sex semen and the mating before. In January we got to just under 5% ahead, February 9.5%, and we're about 28% ahead for March so far, just under 160,000 and 1,090 kilos a hectare I worked out this morning, so that's up to date, and just under 400 kilos a cow as well, so we're cracking on really well. Farmex modelling's showing, with the excellent crop yields, silage bunkers were full coming into summer, great cow condition, and we're expecting to meet our budgeted production by the end of the season, and we're on track for that 175,000 kilos of milk solids, or just over 1,200 solids a hectare. So really, really pleasing considering how dry it's been. Early season rainfall, obviously, everyone knows we had an awesome spring and winter, great utilisation of the feed we had available to us. But you see those two bottom lines, that's this year and last year's rainfall, and it's a long way short of where we need to be. And this 2 years in a row of 700 mil, which is half of what our 5-year average should be. And obviously the pastures have had that moisture stress 2 springs running, and that's run into summer. Soil moisture really dropped away this year. It's even drier than last year, and we've actually we put in a new 600 mil soil moisture probe, and that's actually helped us make decisions from September onwards. Here you see the moisture dropping away, heading into February to our lowest point, or early March. Then we got that 46 mils of rain, and just on the far side there, we just came above that permanent wilting point on the red line, but we've actually started dropping away. So a couple of weeks ago we had a question on when we'd start our autumn N, and I think it'll be once that green line heads back north again, when moisture's not limiting. But the farm's really greened up since that 46 mil, so we're in the right place, and growth rates are definitely increasing. Again, driven by the low moisture level in the soil, plant growth rate have been similar through spring and early summer, and then we've really dropped away, similar to last year really. We didn't have that peak growth in early spring, and that really drove us to buying in some extra silage because we could see from the lack of soil moisture we weren't going to grow a surplus of grass. It's really tricky through spring. I'm sure everyone else found it. We're getting 50 growth rates, 70 the next week, back to 50 again. 52 is our demand, so we're up and down from there. So it's really hard to lock up paddocks, and multiple times I locked up paddocks and then ate them again the following week. So yeah, without making that silage on farm, but also making the decision to keep our calves home, we made the decision to buy in 138 tonne of grass silage. That cost us 36 cents from Fonterra, and that's landed and covered. We had 25 hectares shut up, which was delayed to be harvested at Christmas, and we also secured 100 tonne of palm kernel at $306, and made some hay ready for spring. And this is all a response to that lower growth rates, and just stocking the pantry so that we get through a dry summer, because everyone knows that summer is going to be dry, but we don't know how long it's going to last. So we made the decision to put with good ground conditions, we put the crops in earlier. We planted the kale on the 1st of October. Trickery went in mid-September for the calves, once we made that decision to keep them home, and the turnips were drilled mid-October. And we'll talk a bit more about the crops later on. Pasture covers, we delayed the nitrogen fertiliser in the spring because we were carrying high covers through winter, great utilisation, so we didn't want to grow more than we could cope with. And we were trying to apply with rain because it wasn't regular enough. And just staying on top of our pasture covers, we were able to get the milk production out of the cows with the better feed quality that was available. Production per cow, we peaked higher and longer, and then mid-October we really saw that drop away from 2.1, which we'd held for nearly 10 weeks, over 2 kilos, and then we had within a 2-week period we were down to 1.7. But this coincided with a sudden jump up in our pasture cover and subsequent pasture quality as well. Milk solids versus milk solids a hectare versus homegrown feed. We've actually got a smaller farm this year, but we've actually done more production off that smaller area, and we've been able to just harvest more feed per hectare with less nitrogen being used as well. So we were just under 100 kilos of N last year, with 76 currently to the season, and that's not including our crop N. And as I said before, we'll start putting autumn N on once we get a bit more security of rain. We've actually seen a really good increase in feed conversion to milk solids, so we're down to 9.8 kilos of dry matter eaten per milk solid versus 10.2 last year. And Joe and I did a quick calculation last night, and that equates to 70 tonne less feed eaten for the same amount of milk produced. So it's a decent change in number. And that's just a reflection of the feed quality that was available through spring to support that milk production. Any questions on that bit of an update? All right.
Got this one going, yep.
Yeah, thanks, Tom. That was wonderful. Tom and Joe, the other day I was looking at total rainfall for the last 117 years and found that last year was the driest year, and this is one of the driest years in the history of 117 years, and if not the driest. But issue is the actual rainfall was much less than the average rainfall. That's what you have shown us. But all crop farmers I talked to, they were happy, particularly maize farmers. because the distribution was so like a godsend. So every critical stage of the crop, there was rainfall, as if we irrigated. So that was one of the reasons why we are getting wonderful production this year. But here in Owl Farm, with the experience of last year, one of the driest or the driest year, what is that we have changed this year? Can I have that sort of information? Thank you.
Try and learn something every year, and just having confidence to let those cows go in August and not go, well, that was balanced day, I missed it again. Just trying to balance it really, get ahead of it. We've got silage if I got it wrong. It's just having confidence in getting onto that faster round, and these cows can eat and they can milk as well. So.
And I think, Tom, when we looked at the information, because we were feeling exactly the same. We were watching the soil moisture. Some of the things we did do was we did put the crops in earlier. We brought forward our spring fertiliser. We secured more feed because we knew we weren't going to make a surplus, because if we were dry now, there was no way we were going to catch up to have enough moisture there for that summer period. So even though it was predicted La Nina, which we knew was going to be like this, there was so much risk involved, and we couldn't have it all be exposed to palm kernel product and price, which has FEI implications, and then we didn't want to be exposed to the price. Because of our system, we don't have a lot of options of which feed type. We tend to be grass-based or palm kernel, so that's why we locked in and secured quite substantial purchase silage, and even knowing that we weren't going to make that surplus. So it was really interesting, Bala, when we were tracking it, we were going, geez, and the rainfall was falling. Even during that early summer, we were getting about 14 mils a week. So the grass was growing quite well, but there was just no moisture underneath. And that was the worry. And so this has already got us thinking for next year. I think Manawatu has got a 2% chance of securing enough rainfall to fill up again for next year. We might be a bit more than that, but we're either going to have a very wet autumn winter, or else we're going to be facing another very, very dry summer next year. There's no way that we can catch up with the sort of moisture deficits that we're already experiencing in the soil. So we're already thinking about that now. And we didn't have that information before, so understanding what's happening under the soil has become a really big driver of how we're managing pastures and crops within our system.
Yep.
Yes. So within the assessment of rainfall, effective rainfall, my question's about the measurement and recording of effective rainfall. You just mentioned you had about 40 mils a month. What we're finding up further north, and probably in Bay of Plenty, is that the effective rainfall depends on how much you get at each event of rain. So take out the compounding effect from the previous year. Are you able to measure the losses of moisture from these very low rainfalls and events, very low rainfall events, and does that actually compound the problem? That you record how much rain you've had, so it comes in dribbles of 5 mils or less. And probably, if the sun's out and the wind's blowing, you lose most of it. Whereas you get it at 40 mils, it recharges the topsoil. So have you taken that sort of calculation into effect in driving your management decisions? I hope that's clear.
I'll probably give the farmer answer, and then Joe will back it up with some science. But you can see the grass perks up, just with the 5 mils. But if you don't have that follow-up rain, it soon looks dry again. So that the larger the amount and more regular, it's going to obviously keep things growing for a lot longer. But it's it always amazes me how brown the farm was this time last year, and then looking at it 2 months later and we're buried in grass. It's just fantastic at how well the pasture responds or comes back to life. No.
Yep. And I think the word you're looking for is the evapotranspiration, and so we don't directly measure that here, and it could be something that we could look at doing. I think the closest data point is Hamilton Airport. So even when we were getting those regular rainfalls of about 40 mils, the evapotranspiration rates were up about 4 mils. So, we're sitting there going, okay, that buys us 5 days. This buys us 4 days, literally, from every rainfall event. So hence, when we looked at that graph that Tom showed you with our stress point, we had 47 mils, and we've already, within, 5-6 days from that, since the last significant rainfall, we've already gone back down to stress point because of the evapotranspiration.
Yeah.
And that's because we've got greater leaf area, a bit of wind, still a bit of heat there, etc. So does anybody else, like from Balance or anyone, want to comment on that point before I move on to the next question? Ian?
Yep. Really good discussion. The other thing, if some people have got part of their farm that's got quite a lot of contour on it, and there's intensive rainfall event, you can get runoff, so it actually doesn't infiltrate. And after the dry, you also get a thing called hydrovarbicity, where the soil actually is so dry that the initial rain won't actually penetrate at all. And so there's a range of factors. But yeah, I think a rich discussion, and we could look at data and all that. So.
Thank you, Ian. Question over here.
It was more of a comment, I guess, just following on from Bala's comment about the rainfall. What's more of concern to me, I think, is the soil moisture status. It's dropping substantially. And the question is, do you think that's a function of the soil types on our farm, or is that a trend throughout the rest of the Waikato?
So Bala's saying it's the rest of the Waikato. We have mainly, except the Coromandel, yeah. So we have lighter, gravelly, what have we got here? Kofi, some gravel, Otrahonga gravel, I can't remember all the exact names, but very gravelly, sandy type soils. But it's obviously Waikato wide is what the challenge is. So even on the loam and the ash soils, Pete, same issue. Yep.
We were thinking hydrophobicity around 18 to 20%, particularly in allophilic and pumice soils. But of late, we found that it is much higher than that. So hydrophobicity is water repelling function of soil. So when there is a prolonged dry spell, and suddenly if there is a copious water or rainfall, so water doesn't percolate, because of the weak organic acids that are formed on soil. That's more in allophanic and anything south of Karapiro. This is what is happening, but I don't want to scare people because of that, but it could happen if there is a prolonged dry spell.
Good morning, Tom.
Morning.
Just a comment or a question around the feed conversion efficiency. You talked about the save or the less 70 tonne, I think it was.
Yep.
Do you think maybe that's a high proportion of imported feed, so high ME, better quality, higher cost feeds, or mining of condition at some stage, as in good condition cows, or cows working harder, or a little bit more comment about that opposed to just a direct saving of it's gone somewhere? Maybe?
Yeah, that was just
Sorry,
the back of the envelope calculation that I did. But yeah, it's certainly cow condition, that was mined to produce some milk. So, yeah, but the feed went in to produce that condition. So there's trade-off there.
And higher feed quality. So we did have, we were right on top of feed all spring. Hitting residuals, cows were just eating everything. Feed quality was coming back really good on all our tests. So, and we didn't have massive issues with that surplus until a little bit later. And of course, everyone was worried about delayed contractors, etc. And then we had a significant drop-off. Up to that point, feed quality was amazing on farm. And that was being converted really, really well as mining that extra condition that they put into the vat. They were producing milk off a diet that we knew we weren't feeding them enough for a very, very long period of time. Yeah.